Medical disclaimer. This video is for informational purposes. It does not replace the medical advice of a trained doctor. Seek medical advice before beginning any treatment plan. Hey, good morning or night or whatever it is. It's a little bit later here today. It's around 5 p.m. Usually try to do these in the mornings. But the magical blood sugar right now is 8.8. For once, you can see it either way. Yay! But 8.8, and I had 59 carbs for dinner, and I still have 6 units of active insulin. Exciting, I know. Labile diabetes, or what used to be called brittle diabetes, is a condition that has many different variations of what causes it. It could be, keep my hands out of it, it could be psychological, such as things like eating disorders and along those lines. It could be where people can't utilize insulin properly. So insulin resistance can play a big part of it. For me, I think I pretty well fall into that category. I've always been fairly open and have really tried to control my diabetes. It hasn't worked all the time. With the new pump, let's just take a look here and shall we see what time and range is. Today, I'm 73% in range. The rest of the time is a higher blood sugar. I don't know, in 2014, I didn't think this was ever going to be possible. I know it keeps looking like my head's floating. There we go. But we need to constantly keep a hold of it. At any time, I believe my brittle caused me the worst hyperglycemic stretch. And I don't think I said this. Brittle diabetes is characterized by unexplained highs and unexplained lows, or hyperglycemic events and hypoglycemic events without an explanation. When I was in the hospital, and he's taking extra insulin. That's why he's dropping at night. He's taking extra insulin. I would lie in bed and just start drenching. And then all of a sudden that stopped. Okay. I'm talking symptoms as they progressed. And then I stopped feeling lows. I got chocolates there. But I was following and eating. Yeah, I still, I guess, fall off the diabetic wagon once in a while. But it was going crazy. And the doctors and the nurses were certain I was cheating. That's the only explanation. He's got to be cheating. My my endocrinologist at the time didn't quite agree with that. But they moved me from general ward to the high acuity unit. And the high acuity unit is a room with three walls. The last wall is a sliding glass door so that they can see what's going on all the time. High acuity unit is a step down from intensive care. I was put there. For the first week, I had 10 unexplained reactions. They went through my stuff, making sure I didn't have insulin. They had to give me my needle and I would take the shot in front of them. I still had lows. I think I was in there for 2 months. And then I think they finally decided, oh, maybe he's telling the truth. So they started to come up with different plans. I think I've talked about this before. At one point, I'd start off the day with just 2 eggs. Nothing else. No toast, just 2 eggs. Lunchtime, I could have more. Dinner time, I could have more. And then by bedtime, hell, I could have a whole pizza. And at one point, my endocrinologist said, hell, order in a pizza tonight. And she wanted me to eat that whole pizza. But again, we went through growth hormones and a lot of things. What came out of that was I got a CGM. At that time, the province really wasn't even entertaining the idea of getting a CGM. They're not needed. They're just accessory. But you see, I needed that, and that's how I got out of the hospital. If they never gave me a CGM, I probably would have ended up in here years ago. And allowing people to are listening to people and saying, I'm trying to control. It's always, oh, well, the patient's doing something wrong. And, it's the kids and teenagers. If teenagers aren't getting the perfect blood sugar, oh, well, you're cheating. I don't think it's so much prevalent now, but that was the whole thing when I was growing up. You had a high blood sugar. Oh, what did you eat today? What did you eat? You had candy or something, didn't you? If you had a pop, are you sure that's diet? Which puts a lot more stress on the diabetic. And it builds, no one really trusts you. And if you have a low in school, oh, you're taking too much insulin. And I still get that here. If I have a low, I get, are you taking too much insulin? And I'll say, no, I just had my prescribed dose. And again, in here, I control my diabetes because I know I can work with my doctor, my nurse, and probably get tighter control than what they can do here for me. They constantly, well, not constantly, I had a couple of severe lows when I first got in here. And it was oh, well, we better lock your pump and, any extra insulin, we'll give it to you. And I said, no. And luckily, my diabetic endocrinologist said no. Maybe one day it'll come where that's necessary. But brittle diabetes is real. It affects a lot of people. Now, in Canada, I believe it is, they say about 2% of diabetics are labile or brittle. Of that, 2% of that 2% is what they call severe brittle. Hello? But there's something, this pump and this latest pump system has been great. I don't feel great high. I panic when I go low. But it's always the first excuse is, oh, the patient's doing something wrong. I know they're doing something wrong. So we'll just have to lock them up. We'll take control. And diabetes is something patient-driven. We have to take ownership. We have to take control. Yes, it's very easy to pass it off and say, oh, well, you do it all. I don't know how to. Well, the patient's not going to learn anything, not going to know anything about diabetes. I'm sort of an enigma, I guess you'd call it here. I have been placed in a facility. Being in a facility is sort of like the last chance for diabetics. The best thing you could do is be out in the community. If brittle diabetics go in the hospital, you're there for a while. When I went in Christmas 2020, I was there for almost 4 months. And again, they couldn't control me. I kept going into hyperglycemic, and next thing I know, I was having a low. Diabetes sucks for the average diabetic. Brittle diabetic is like 50 times worse. You need to always be prepared. I've got my emergency kit when I go out. I don't do this so often now because, like, coming next Tuesday, I head into Vancouver to the eye clinic. If I was at home still, I'd call my friend and say, okay, I'm going to the eye clinic. I then called them when I got to the eye clinic and reversed the steps when I was going home. Because I was found in the middle of, Kingsway is one of our major streets, in the middle of the street, face down in the pavement. I've been on a sidewalk somewhere. And all of these, we don't know why. If I have 3 days of doing the exact same thing, I get 3 days of totally different numbers. So if your son or daughter is really struggling, you need to ask them what's going on. Talk to their doctors. Have the teenager talk to their doctors. Are they truly brittle, or are they just not complying with the program? But don't go accusing, because that's not going to help anyone. Accusing can be one of the worst things ever. So, in answer to my question at the beginning, yes, diabetes is brittle. Diabetes is brittle. Brittle diabetes is real. Yeah, that works well. So, if it happens, have open dialogue with your son or your daughter. And if they had a whole chocolate bar and their blood sugar went up, that's great. That means that it's explainable. But if they can't come up with an explanation, don't be so accusing. And with that, we'll call it a day. Diabetes brittle is real. My email is mikesdiabetesworld@gmail.com. mikesdiabetesworld@gmail.com.